So today's tutorial is going to be on how to make this absolutely lovely purple dahlia knot bag. This bag, you're going to do a couple of different stitches. You're going to do the spider stitch. You're going to do a reverse single crochet or a crab stitch. We're going to make some lacy trim. And we're going to make these wonderful three-dimensional purple dahlias, granny square style. It's a beautiful bag, and it's sturdy, and it's perfect for shopping or just kicking around town, going to the beach. Whatever it is you do, this is a wonderful bag, and it will definitely hold up to the abuse, particularly if you choose to line it. Now, while this tutorial is not going to give you a step-by-step lesson on how to line it, I'll give you some quick pointers on what you need to do in order to properly line your bag if you really don't know how to do that. Visually speaking, it's beautiful, it's classy, and it'll fit with just about anyone's style. My name is Sig, and what a pleasure it is to have you with me today for this tutorial. It's your interest and support that allows me to contribute new content and weekly videos. Help us all grow together by tapping the subscribe bar, notification bell, and like buttons. I look forward to your comments and always value your feedback. Today I'm going to be using a variety of colors in my purple dahlia squares. I'm using fingering weight yarns. These yarns right here in the smaller balls, they are actually a silk and alpaca blend yarn. And then the colorful larger ball of yarn is a wool and acrylic blend. Now, admittedly, you're not going to be able to find these, I'm pretty sure, at your local hobby store. You'll have to order them offline or get them from a more specialty-oriented yarn shop. However, for those of you who are looking to make this bag but choose to go to a standard hobby store or just simply use what you have available in your stash at home, you're going to want to use a fingering weight yarn. So basically, depending on your yarn, it's going to be either a size 2 or a size 3. That can vary a little bit, but all in all, whatever you have, as long as the colors work for you, is going to work very well for this project, so long as it's about the right size. Now, next I'm going to be using a size C hook because I am using a fingering weight yarn. It's also considered to be a 2.75 millimeter hook for those of you who don't work in terms of US sizes. So for my dahlia granny square, and this is a purple dahlia, I'm going to begin with the center. Now, depending on the species of dahlia, you're going to have anywhere from a dark purple center to a green to a golden color. So really, it's up to you as to how you want to proceed with that. But I would like to use my multicolored yarn here as the center of my dahlia. And so I'm going to begin working with this yarn. And I'm going to start by making an adjustable ring. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to chain 3. Now this 3 chain is going to take the place of or be considered as a double crochet. And then next I'm going to make a double crochet twice. So 1 and then 2. So now that I have basically 3 double crochets, in this case I've got a 3 chain and 2 double crochets, I'm going to do a popcorn stitch. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with a popcorn stitch, what I do is I remove my hook, I gently reassert my hook into the first stitch of the cluster, I pick up the loop, and then I pull that loop through and I slip stitch. And then I'm going to chain 1. And I'm going to make another 3 double crochet popcorn stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a double crochet 3 times right there in that ring. I'm going to remove my hook, and then I'm going to insert my hook into that first double crochet. I'm going to come swing around. I'm going to pick up that loop again. I'm going to pull that loop through, and then I'm going to make a slip stitch. And I'm going to chain 1. Now on this ring, I want to do 4 more of these. So that'll leave me with a total of 6 of these popcorn stitches. Now once you have 6 completed, you're going to want to go ahead and in the 3rd stitch of the 3 chain stitch that you made at the beginning, you're going to want to join. At least you're going to want to join if you're only going this far with this particular color yarn. If I wanted to make my first round of petals also the same color as the center, then I would continue for 1 more round with this same color. If I was making the whole dahlia the same color from beginning to end, I wouldn't even change colors. Obviously, I would just keep going with the same colors. But because for this piece, I only want the very bare center of my purple dahlia to be this particular color of yarn, I'm going to join and end here. So now that I've completed the first round, I'm going to move on to my second round. And the dahlia itself is going to be a total of 9 rounds. So we have 8 more rounds to go to at least complete the flower part of this square. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to chain 6. So 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. In the second chain from my hook, I'm going to single crochet. In the next chain, I'm going to make a half double crochet. And then I'm going to do in the next chain a double crochet. And then the next chain I'm going to do another double crochet. And then the very last chain I'm going to do a half double crochet. And then I'm going to slip stitch to that single chain. And that is my first petal. Now we're going to do this 6 times for row 2, so we have 5 more times to do this. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to slip stitch into this next chain 1 space. I began in the first chain 1 space, now I'm going to slip stitch into the next chain 1 space. And again, I'm going to chain 6. And then in the second chain from the hook, I'm going to make a single crochet. Then in the next chain, I'm going to do a half double crochet. And then in the chain after that, I'm going to do a double crochet. And then next, I'm going to do another double crochet in that next chain. And then in the very last chain of that row, I'm going to go ahead and do a half double crochet. And then on that same chain stitch, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to slip stitch again. And that's the completion of my second petal for round 2. And then as before, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to slip stitch into that next single chain. And I'm going to continue to do that for each single chain that we made for round 1. And then round 2, we will end with 6 petals. So at the completion of round 2, this is what my work looks like. And I have my first 6 petals. For round 3, I want to start chaining my back bars. And these will set me up for the petals that I'm going to be crocheting for round 4. And I want to have 9 of them, right? So this is how I'm going to achieve that. Right here where I've just finished off my last petal, I'm going to chain 3. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to insert my hook right here in the corner of the first petal that I crocheted in round 2. And then I'm going to chain 3. So then next I'm going to come here and in between petal 1 and petal 2, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to insert my hook and I'm going to make a slip stitch there, and I'm going to chain 3. And now here on this corner of petal 2, the far corner of petal 2, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to attach my 3 chain bar with a slip stitch, and I'm going to chain 3. And then for my third petal, or at my third petal there at the corner, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to attach my next slip stitch. And then I'm going to chain 3. And then between petals 3 and 4, I'm going to come right in here. And I'm going to slip stitch. And then I'm going to chain 3. And then here on this fourth petal, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to anchor my chain 3 right here into this corner of the petal. And I'm going to slip stitch. I'm going to chain 3, and then I'm going to anchor this next chain 3 stitch into the first bottom corner of the 5th petal. And again, I'm going to do that with a slip stitch. And then I'm going to chain 3. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to slip stitch right here into the stitch between petals 5 and 6. And then I'm going to chain 3. And then that brings us all the way back around to where we started for round 3. And I'm going to tie my slip stitch right there into the corner, that bottom corner of petal 6, right there from where we started our first chain 3 bar. And that should leave you with a total of 9 bars. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So now we're going to move on to round 4. And for round 4, I'm going to slip stitch into this first chain 3 loop. And then I'm going to chain 6. And then as before, I'm going to single crochet. And then I'm going to half double crochet in the next stitch. And then I'm going to double crochet in the next 2 stitches. And then in the last stitch, I'm going to half double crochet. And then in that same chain 3 loop, I'm going to slip stitch. And then I'm going to slip stitch into the chain 3 loop right next to it. And then I'm going to begin. I'm going to chain 6. And as before, I'm going to insert my hook into that second chain from my hook. And then, of course, as before, a half double crochet. And then a double crochet in the next 2 stitches. And then a half double crochet in that last stitch. And then I'm going to slip stitch again right there onto that same chain 3 loop. And I'm going to continue that 7 more times until I've come back around and completed round 4. So now that I've completed row 4 with 9 petals, I'm going to do row 5 very similarly to row 3. Because I have 9 petals, but I want to set myself up for 12 petals. So similarly to row 3, I'm going to go ahead right here where I've ended with my 9th petal, and I'm going to chain 3. And then in the first petal of row 4, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to slip stitch right into the bottom corner. Like so. And then don't worry about anything that looks a little gappy right now, because it all closes in on itself by the time we've finished doing this. Then I'm going to chain 3, and I'm going to slip stitch between petal 1 and petal 2 of row 4 or round 4. And then I'm going to chain 3, and then I'm going to slip stitch between petals 2 and petal 3. And then I'm going to chain 3 again. And this time I'm going to slip stitch right here at the corner of petal 3. And then I'm going to chain 3. And then I'm going to slip stitch right here at this first bottom corner of petal 4. And then I'm going to chain 3. And then I'm going to slip stitch between petal 4 and petal 5. And then I'm going to chain 3. And then I'm going to slip stitch between petal 5 and petal 6. And then I'm going to chain 3. And then right here at petal 6, at the corner of petal 6, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to slip stitch in that bottom corner closest to petal 7, and I'm going to chain 3. And then I'm going to slip stitch at the corner of petal 7, the first bottom corner of petal 7 closest to your hook. Maybe if I can get this to work. And then I'm going to chain 3 again. And I'm going to slip stitch between petal 7 and petal 8. And then I'm going to chain 3. And I'm going to slip stitch between petal 8 and petal 9. And then I'm going to chain 3. And then I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch right back here into the very same corner that I began my first chain 3 loop from, here for round 5. Just like that. And that should have given me 12 chain 3 loops. Now, as with rows 4 and 2, I'm going to begin making petals again. So like with row 4, in each of my chain 3 loops, I'm going to make a petal. So I'm going to slip stitch into that petal, that first chain 3 loop, and then I'm going to chain 6. And then again, just as before, same petal, single crochet in the second chain from the hook, and then a half double crochet, and then a double crochet, and then a double crochet again after that. And then that last stitch is going to be a half double crochet, and then we're going to slip stitch again in that same chain 3 loop. And then we're going to go right here to the very next chain 3 loop and begin that again. So we're going to slip stitch in that loop. I'm going to go ahead and chain 6. And I've completed 1 petal. I'm going to continue to do 11 more petals for round 6. So I just finished my 12th petal and completed round 6. Now we're going to go on to round 7. And again, we're going to set ourselves up for one more row of petals in round 8. But this time, we just need 3 chain 3 loops. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to chain 3. And then between petals 1 and 2, I'm going to slip stitch. I'm going to chain 3. And between petals 2 and 3, I'm going to slip stitch. And I'm going to chain 3. And between petals 3 and 4, I'm going to slip stitch. I'm going to continue doing that all the way around, and I will end up with a total of 12 of these chain 3 loops for round 7. So now that I've completed my 12 chain 3 loops, I'm going to move on to round 8. And in round 8, we're going to again put a single petal into each of these chain 3 loops. So again, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to slip stitch into that loop, and then I'm going to do chain 6. And I'm going to continue making my petals just as before. I'm going to complete my petal. I'm going to slip stitch it into that same chain 3 loop, and then I'm going to slip stitch into the next loop and start my petal all over again. And then when I've completed that second petal, I'm going to slip stitch it into that chain 3 loop, and then I'm going to slip stitch into the next chain 3 loop and continue until I've completed 12 more petals. So now that I've created my 12 petals for round 8, I'm going to move on to round 9. And in round 9, we pretty much want the same thing. We're going to do 3 chain loops again, and we want 12 of them. But this time, we're going to come right back here into the middle of our petal, here at kind of the bottom or the base, and we're going to go ahead and slip stitch right into that bottom base part of the petal, and then chain 3. And then I'm going to go ahead, and then in the next petal, I'm going to slip stitch right there into the bottom base of that, and I'm going to chain 3 again. I'm going to continue doing this all the way around, and I will end round 9 with 12 chain 3 loops once more. And then I'm going to finish off the color, because then we'll be finished with the Dahlia flower and we'll be ready to move on to our next color. So now that I've completed round 9, I have something that looks like this. And I'm going to get ready to start round 10. And so I've changed over to my green. In this case, it's going to be the lighter green. Now for the rest of this block, you can do whatever colors you want in whatever order you want to do them. I just happen to be switching over to the light green, and I'm going to use this color for the next 2 rows, or rather I should say 2 rounds. Now to get started, it doesn't matter where I start. I'm going to pick one of these 3 chain loops. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to tie right in there, and then I'm going to chain 3, and then I'm going to double crochet in that same loop. Then I'm going to chain 2, and in the very next loop, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to double crochet 3, plus I'm going to chain 3, and then I'm going to double crochet 3 again in that same loop. And that'll be my first corner. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to chain 2. And then I'm going to do 2 double crochets together. So basically I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to start my first double crochet in that next chain 3 loop. And because I want to do another double crochet with it together, I'm going to not complete the full double crochet yet, but I'm going to get through it about halfway, and then I'm going to start my next double crochet. And now I'm going to have 3 loops on my hook, and then I'm going to yarn over and pull that through. So basically it's turning 2 double crochets into a single stitch. And except for the corners, this is how I'm going to handle this 2 double crochet together stitches. So then I'm going to do it again. I'm going to chain 2, and in the next chain 3 loop, I'm going to do 2 double crochets together. And then I'm going to chain 2, and then in the next 3 chain loop, I'm going to start my second corner. So that's going to be double crochet 3 times, plus a chain 3, plus another double crochet 3 times in the same 3 chain loop. I'm going to chain 2, and in the next 3 chain loop, I'm going to do 2 double crochets together. Then I'm going to chain 2, and in the next 3 chain loop, I'm going to do 2 double crochets together. And then I'm going to start my third corner in the next chain 3 loop. So that's going to be double crochet 3 times, plus chain 3, plus a double crochet 3 more times, all in that same loop. And then I'm going to chain 2. And then I'm going to continue just like before. I'm going to do 2 double crochets together in the next chain 3 loop. I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm going to do 2 double crochets together, chain 2, and then I'm going to do my fourth corner. Which of course is going to be double crochet 3 times, plus a chain 3, plus another double crochet 3 times, all in that same 3 chain loop. And I'm going to chain 2, and the next 3 chain loop, I'm going to do 2 double crochets together. Now with this last stitch, I'm not going to chain 2. What I am going to do is I'm going to do a double crochet into the top of the next 2 double crochets together. So you see that right there, like that, like so. And then that closes up round 10 for me. And then I'm going to chain 3, and I'm going to begin round 11. And round 11 is going to pretty much be exactly what we did for round 10. So what that's going to look like is I'm going to do a double crochet here with this in the same space as my chain 3, and then I'm going to chain 2. And then in my next chain 2 space, I'm going to do another 2 double crochets together. And then I'm going to chain 2. And then in my next corner, again, I'm going to do 3. I'm going to double crochet 3 times. And I'm going to chain 3. And then I'm going to double crochet 3 times again in that same chain 3 space there at the corner. And then I'm going to chain 2. And for each chain 2 space, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do the 2 double crochets together and then chain 2. The corners are all going to be the same as the corner I just completed. 3 double crochets plus a chain 3 plus another double crochet 3 times in each corner. And when I get back around to the end of round 11 for myself, I'm going to go ahead and I am going to tie off. However, if you are using the same color yarn, when you transition to round 12, do exactly what we did down here when we transitioned from 10 to 11. Go ahead and do your double crochet across the top bar in order to set yourself up for the next row or round. So now, so far, I have my square that looks like this. I'm going to begin my next color. And you can pretty much start this anywhere you want to if you're change colors. If not, you'll just pick up where you left off. I'm going to begin round 12. And of course, just like before, I'm going to chain 3 and I'm going to double crochet. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and chain 2. And in my next chain 2 space, I'm going to put 2 double crochets together, just like before. Chain 2, and then 2 double crochets together. And chain 2. And the corner is going to be exactly the same as before. 3 double crochets. Chain 3. And double crochet 3 more times. And continue that until I get back around. Now to finish off round 12, I'm just going to go ahead and chain 2, and then I'm going to join right here into the 3rd stitch of this 3 chain stitch right here. Then I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to go ahead and I am going to make a single crochet in that same stitch. And then I'm going to single crochet 2 times in the chain 2 space, and then I'm going to single crochet once in that 2 double crochet together stitch, and then I'm going to single crochet again 2 times in the 2 chain space, and again once in the 2 double crochet together stitch, and then again in the twice in the chain 2 space. Then I'm going to single crochet a single crochet for each of the double crochets, first 3 double crochets in the corner, and then I'm going to single crochet 3 single crochets in the chain 3 space there in the corner, and then I'm going to single crochet for each of the next 3 double crochets here in the corner. Basically, I am going to single crochet or match a single crochet for each stitch around the entire square. Now once I've completed round 13, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to join, and then I'm going to go ahead and chain 1, and then I'm going to single crochet in that same stitch, and I'm going to single crochet in each stitch. The only thing I'm going to do that's different is here in this corner stitch, on each corner I'm going to put 3 single crochets into the 1 stitch there at each corner. Otherwise, everything else is going to be a single crochet, and then we're going to finish off and this square will be finished. So your piece should look something like this. I still need to block it so it's a little wobbly, but otherwise I'm basically going to be working with the same colors that I already have for the squares that I've completed for this bag. The difference is that I'm not going to have a flower on there because that's going to be part of the bag that is the base of the bag where the bag sits. And well, that should go without saying, we don't need a flower there. So, or at least not a 3-dimensional flower. So let's get started on that. For this next square, this next granny square, I'm going to need an adjustable ring just like before. And then I'm going to chain 3. Next, I'm going to do 2 double crochets together. And then I'm going to chain 1. And then I'm going to do 3 double crochets together. And then I'm going to chain 1. Now I'm going to do the 3 double crochets together 4 more times. So I'll end up with a total of 6 clusters plus a chain on the ring when I've completed my 6 clusters. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to join. And I'm going to fasten off and start my next color. Next, I'm going to bring in my new color. I'm going to tie that in. And I'm going to go ahead and chain 3. And then I'm going to double crochet 2 together. I'm going to chain 2. And then my next chain 1 space, I'm going to take 3 double crochets and crochet them together. So 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to chain 2. And continue doing that until I've completed 6 clusters all the way around for round 2. Now that I've come all the way back around, I'm going to join. And then I'm going to slip stitch over to my next chain 2 space. And then I'm going to chain 3. And I'm going to do 2 double crochets together. I'm going to chain 1. And then I'm going to do 3 double crochets together in that same chain 2 space. And then I'm going to chain 1. And then I'm going to do 3 double crochets together in the next chain 2 space. And then I'm going to chain 1. And then I'm going to do 3 double crochets together in this same chain 2 space. And I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to continue that 8 more times. Or basically I'm going to do 2 clusters in each of the next 4 chain 2 spaces. Then I'm going to go ahead after we're finished round 3. And here I'm going to fasten off my purple, and then I'm going to tie on my green. I'm personally going to do my light green so that it matches basically the same color scheme as the rest of my squares. And I'm going to continue on just like I would with the other squares, and doing the same stitches that I did beginning with the greens. So with the next color, you're going to start in any chain 1 space that you care to start in. And of course we're going to begin with the chain 3. And then the double crochet. And I'm going to chain 2. And then in the next chain 1 space, I'm going to go ahead and do the 3 of those double crochets, and then chain 3, and then do 3 more double crochets in that same space. Their first corner, and then chain 2. And then we're going to do 2 double crochets together in the next chain 1 space. and we're going to chain 2, and then 2 more double crochets together in the next chain 1 space, and then chain 2. And then in the next chain 1 space, we're going to make another corner. So that's going to be double crochet 3 times, chain 3, and then double crochet 3 more times, all in the same space. And then chain 2, and then 2 double crochets together in the next chain 1 space, then chain 2, another 2 double crochets together in the next chain 1 space, and then chain 2. We're going to do another corner in the next space, so 3 double crochet 3 times, chain 3, and then double crochet 3 more times in that same space. And then chain 2, and 2 double crochets together. And chain 2. 2 double crochets together. And then chain 2. And then 1 more corner. Chain 2, and then 2 double crochets together. Now, to close this off, I'm going to go ahead and do a double crochet, but we're going to do it in the 3rd stitch of that chain 3 that we started with. And that's how we're going to close that off. And then we're going to chain 3. I'm going to go ahead and do a double crochet, and then I'm going to chain 2. And then I'm going to continue just like before. And you continue all the way around, just like we did with the other squares. And I will meet you back here at the end of round 5. And just like before, for this round 6, I'm going to again, in each chain 2 space, I'm going to do 2 double crochets together, plus a chain 2, and then in each corner space, I'm going to go ahead and do 3 or double crochet 3 times, chain 3, and then double crochet 3 more times. And I'm going to do that completely for round 6. And then once I've gotten that completed, I will show you what I'm going to do next. Pretty much, if you remember what we did with the previous squares, that's exactly what I'm going to do. But if you need a refresher, or you don't want to go back to the beginning or near the beginning of the video to see what it was that we did, just hang tight and I'll continue to walk you through that process. So now that I've completed round 6, I'm going to go ahead and I joined, and I'm going to chain 1, and in that same stitch I'm going to single crochet. 2 single crochets in the chain 2 space, plus a single crochet over the 2 double crochets together, and then 2 single crochets in the chain 2 space, and then a single crochet in the 2 double crochets together. I'm going to continue it just like that until I get to the corner. And then I'm going to do a single crochet for the next 3 stitches. And then I'm going to single crochet 3 times in the chain 3 space. And then I'm going to single crochet over each of the next 3 stitches. And then 2 single crochets in the chain 2 space, and then a single crochet in the 2 double crochets together. I'm going to continue just that same pattern all the way around. So basically it's a single crochet for each previous stitch, really. So now that I've completed round 7, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to join. I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to single crochet in that same stitch. And now this time I'm going to do a single crochet for each single crochet. And the only difference is when I get to the corner, this one corner stitch, I'm going to put 3 single crochets into that corner stitch. I'm going to do that all the way around, and then I'm going to finish off, and this block will be finished. So now I'm going to stop for a minute, and I'm going to piece a few things together before moving on to the body of the bag. I'm going to take my 9 3D squares, and I'm going to sew them together. Just get them sewn together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply take a matching yarn. In this case, I used the green because I had a little bit of that left. And I simply whip stitched the back loops of each square where they joined. And so what you're going to want to do is you're going to have 2 rows of 3. So this is where your 6 squares are going to sit. And then you're going to, here at the top of the row, you're going to place 2 squares on your right hand side and 1 additional square on the left hand side. So basically this is what your shape is going to look like, the initial shape of your fabric once you sew your blocks together, as far as this is concerned. I'll give you a minute to kind of see how that's sewn together. Next, you're going to take your 2-dimensional square. Now keep in mind, each one of these squares is approximately 4 by 4 inches. And that's what I have my measurements based off of, using the particular yarn that I'm using. Now your mileage might differ a little bit, so it's going to be important for you to think in terms of gauging your work before you start, doing a swatch so you can figure out a little better where your stitches are going to lie and how much space it's going to take up. So for this, it's 26 stitches across. So that would have been simply 26 single crochets across. And for me, in this case, I went 8 inches. Pay too close attention to the count. I just crocheted single crochets, and it ended up being about 56 rows. And so this gives me a total length of 12 inches for the base of my purse. Next, I wanted to work on the actual fabric of the purse. The rest, what I needed to do was I needed to basically chain 130 chains. And what this does is this allows for 8 inches on the front side, 4 inches on the side, and then another 8 inches on the back. Now again, your mileage might vary a little bit. This is why it's important to do up a swatch and figure out what your gauge is, because your yarn may necessitate that you reconsider your count a little bit. Now, I also did this, and I continued to crochet until it was approximately 8 inches high. All right, so this is going to mirror the height of 2 of my granny squares. Then also I needed my other strap. I ran along the base for 26 stitches, again basically the width of my 4-inch block, of my 4-inch square. And then I made the strap 18 inches long. Now I used stitch markers to measure out how far over I was going to come. So I needed to come over 8 inches from here to here. And then I just counted back my 26 stitches, and then I measured to make sure that it was approximately 4 inches long. And this is where I picked up my yarn and began to crochet. So the next thing I'm going to do is show you how to do this spider stitch. I love this stitch. It has beautiful texture with the fingering weight yarn. It really gives it more a kind of knitted fabric weight, and slightly thicker than you might expect a knitted fabric weight to be, but not by very much. It's really a nice alternative. And this texture, this stitch, really lends itself to a nice subtle interest to pair up with the various yarns that I used. It really keeps them cohesive while adding interest, but in a subtle way. So let's go ahead and I will show you how to do this stitch. It's super simple, and I think you'll love it just as much as I do. Get started with the spider stitch. We need to chain an even number of chains. So for the sake of this video, I've gone ahead and I've made a foundation chain of 42. Next, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to insert my hook into that third chain from the hook, and I'm going to single crochet. Then I'm going to chain 1 and I'm going to single crochet again in that same stitch. Next, I'm going to skip the next stitch, and in the stitch after that, I'm going to single crochet. And then I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to single crochet again in that same stitch. Next, I'm going to skip the next stitch, and in the stitch after that, I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to single crochet, I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to single crochet again in that same stitch. I'm going to continue that same pattern until the last stitch of my row. Now, once we've gotten to the end of our row, you should have one chain left, and in that chain you're just simply going to do a single crochet. Then you're going to turn your work. I'm going to chain 2. And then we're going to start this all over again, except what we're going to do is in the first chain, single chain stitch, we're going to go ahead and we're going to single crochet, chain 1, and single crochet again in that stitch. Then we're going to go to our next chain 1 stitch. We're going to single crochet, chain 1, and then single crochet again in that same stitch. Then again, we're going to go to our chain 1 stitch. I'm going to single crochet, chain 1, and then single crochet again. And again, continue doing that all the way to the end of our second row. Once we've gotten to the end of our second row, we're going to go ahead and we're going to single crochet right there in our turning chain. We're going to turn our work again. We're going to chain 2, and once again we're going to single crochet in the first chain 1 space, and then chain 1, and then single crochet again, and again single crochet, chain 1, single crochet again in the same stitch. I'm going to keep doing this. This is all there is to this particular stitch. Single crochet, chain 1, and single crochet again, all in the chain 1 stitch. And you just keep repeating this row until you've acquired the desired length. So easy. So now I've completed sewing the bag together. I've taken all the components and I've sewn them together to create the bag, of course using back loop only and just your basic whip stitch. You can see used a matching yarn in order to do that. And I've still left all the stitch markers in place just so that you can kind of get an idea. With regards to all the various placements. So now the next thing I did was I decided to go ahead and trim out my bag. Because that's just how I roll. I like to trim things out. I like to clean up the edges a little bit with kind of interesting visual kinds of finishes. So here I've done this basic trim. And on the edges of the straps, I have actually done a reverse single crochet, or otherwise known as a crab stitch. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how to do both of these things. I'm going to show you how I made this lacy trim, and then I'll show you how to do the reverse single crochet stitch if you're not already familiar with it. So we're going to start here here on the end of the purse. And what I show you and how I show you how to do your lacy trim on this little stretch of the purse is going to be applicable to the rest of the purse itself. So you don't have to worry about anything special or any particular exceptions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie in, and I'm going to tie into the corner where the strap and the top edge of the bag meet. And then once I tie in, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a single crochet in that same stitch. Then I'm going to chain 5. Four and 5. Next, I'm going to skip 3 stitches and I'm going to single crochet in the next stitch. And I'm going to chain 5 again. And then I'm going to skip the next 3 stitches and I'm going to single crochet in the next stitch after that. I'm going to continue doing just that all the way across. Once I get here to the end, my count just happened to be perfect for this, and so I find myself right here at the corner, at the other end corner here where the strap meets the edge of the purse, and I've single crocheted in there. But now before I turn, I'm going to go up a stitch. I'm just going to slip stitch right into the edge of the strap there. And then I'm going to turn my work. And then I'm going to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to single crochet in the first 5 chain loop. And then I'm going to do 8 double crochets in the next 5 chain loop. Three, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And so then in the next 5 chain loop, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to single crochet. And then the next 5 chain loop, I'm going to double crochet 8. 1, 7, and 8. Then again, I'm going to single crochet in the next 5 chain loop. And then in the next 5 chain loop after that, I'm going to do another 8 double crochets. 1 and 8. Then I'm going to, in my last 5 chain loop, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to single crochet, and then I'm going to chain 3. And then I'm going to come here and I'm going to actually single crochet right here into that very first single crochet that I did where I tied in. And then I'm going to come here to the corresponding stitch on the strap next to it, and I'm just going to simply slip stitch. Basically anchor that side of the trim into the strap. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to slip stitch in the next 2 stitches of that previous 3 chain stitch that we just did. So I'm going to slip stitch in that first chain and then the second chain. Just like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a double crochet with a picot. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start my double crochet into the next double crochet stitch. And then I'm going to do a 3-chain picot. 1, 2, 3. And then insert my hook into these 2 front bars right here. And then I'm going to go ahead and make a slip stitch. And that'll give me my picot. And then I'm going to do that 7 more times. So each of the double crochets that I did in row 2 of the trim, I'm now going to put a double crochet with a picot in each one of those. So I'll do that 7 more times. Okay, now that I've finished that first set of double crochets with the picots, I'm going to come over to my next cluster of double crochets and I'm going to do the same thing. And then again, once we've finished this fan of double crochets, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do my last 8 double crochets. And then once we come back here, we've done our last double crochet with a picot. I'm going to come over here to this chain 3 and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to slip stitch 2 slip stitches in there. And then I'm going to come here to the edge of the strap again, and this is where we're going to fasten off. And now we've completed our lacy trim. And this is a decent trim for this particular bag because you're going to be able to fill this bag and this trim just isn't going to get in the way. It's a nice look and I think it finishes off the bag beautifully. But in terms of functionality and being able to use the bag in a way that you want to use the bag, this isn't going to be an impediment. Now the next thing I want to do is this reverse single crochet or crab stitch, and I want to edge my remaining strap with that particular stitch. So we're going to begin by coming down here to the base where the edge of your bag before you put the trim on meets the edge of the strap. And I'm going to insert my hook right in there into that stitch. So I'm going to have to work around the other stitches that are there, and that's fine. I'm going to tie in, and then a reverse crochet, for those of you who don't know, is basically a single crochet worked in reverse. So instead of working towards a leftward direction, provided you're right-handed, you're going to work in a rightward direction. And I'm going to do that by taking my hook, and then I'm going to insert my hook. And just a minute, this can get a little fiddly when you're trying to do it under a camera and then also on a piece of fabric that has a bunch of other stitching going on. Okay, so I've got my hook through. I'm going to take my yarn, I'm going to pull it through. So now I have 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to pull that yarn through. That'll be my first stitch. And my next stitch is going to go into that next stitch. I'm going to pull my yarn through with 2 loops on the hook, and I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull that yarn through. Then go ahead and do in the next stitch. Now for me, because of the way my lace trim lays with this count, I'm actually going to pick up that corner or that picot here, and I'm going to pull my yarn through that. and then I'm going to pull it through. This way, what this does is this just kind of gives a little more stability to my lace work, and it just kind of holds it in place, and so it won't flop over. It kind of ties it more securely to the strap itself. And then I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to pull that through. I'm going to go into the next stitch, and I'm going to pull my yarn through, yarn over, and pull through. And then it's going to be pretty easy selling from here on in, because it's just basically the strap edge. So I'm going to insert my hook again. I'm going to pull that yarn through. I'm going to have 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to pull that through. So I'm going to continue to crochet my reverse single crochet just like so, or also known as a crab stitch. This is really a nice stitch. This is one of my favorite stitches to use in terms of cleaning up an edge or finishing off an edge, however you want to look at it or use it for. It's a kind of a sleek look. I think it's pretty modern looking. So I'm using this also with trim, but if you wanted a nice clean edge but you didn't want the more classic look of trim, this is a much more modern approach. I just decided to use both of them in the same piece, because I kind of like the juxtaposition, as you can see, basically with the fabric of part of the bag, and then of course the granny squares, which give a more vintage kind of a look. So it's kind of a mashup of the two, kind of a more contemporary fusion with the vintage. And you're going to continue to do this until we get back around here. And again, once I get back around here to the other side, I'm going to pick up this peacock in the last double crochet, and I'll end up tying that into the edge of the strap as well. And I'll see you right back here. So now that we have our trim and our crab stitch finished, we have all our edgings nice and clean and beautiful, I'm going to talk about the lining. Now for the lining, basically what you're simply going to do is, before you've sewn all your components together to create your bag, you're just going to lay your components out on your fabric. I happen to have some flannel fabric, some scrap fabric, enough to satisfy my needs for lining. And in your case, any lightweight fabric will do, whether it's cotton, linen, even a light wool, anything will do, whatever you happen to have on hand. Or if you simply wish to go and purchase fabric specifically for this bag, that's awesome too. So basically what I've done is laid my component pieces out on the fabric, and then I cut 2 pieces for each of my components. And when I traced it out, I made sure that I left at least a quarter to half an inch additional spacing around my pieces, so that I would have room for sewing. So what I did was I made 2 sleeves, one to accommodate each of my straps. And then I took my components and I made 2 buckets to bags from the fabric, and then I faced the outside or the seam side of each of those buckets together. And what that does is that gives me an insert where you're not going to see any of those seams from either the outside or the inside. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place this into my bag, and then of course sew this into the bag itself. And I'll show you what that looks like here in just a quick second. So if you chose to line your bag, you're going to have something that looks like this. Now, I am personally all for lining my bags. In fact, that's exactly what I do with just about every purse or bag I make. I do this for a couple of reasons. One, it gives it a really nice professional look, but more than that, it adds stability and strength to your bag, so you can carry a lot more in it without worrying about messing up all the hard work you put into making your bag. In addition, it also prevents a lot of the wear and tear that would otherwise pull your bag out of shape, especially for a piece like this. We don't want it to get misshapen. Yes, it's a functional bag. Yes, it's meant for everyday use. However, it's a little more than that. Visually speaking, it's a lovely bag and it's fun. And you really want to keep it as nice looking as possible for as long as possible because you put a lot of work into it. But now it's time for me to say goodbye. So until I see all you wonderful and creative fiber artists, stay crafty. Bye now. Thanks again.